Right, we're going to finish up our discussion of secondary dominants with the secondary leading tone chord and then brush up a few loose ends. So we know that the 7 chord, when we have it as a leading tone chord, when it's a diminished chord, functions just like the 5 chord. So since it's a dominant chord in function, you can have secondary 7 chords just like you have secondary 5 chords as long as they're leading tone chords. They're half steps away from where you're going. I put one on the board here. They all work the same. Here's your 5 chord. If I was doing a 5 of 5, I'd take a 2 chord, right? And I would sharp the third and make it a dominant chord of the tonicized chord. But now instead, I'm going to just take what looks like a 7 chord of the 5 chord. It's a diminished chord, F sharp, A, and C. It's a leading tone away from G. And by the way, it's easy to do. I just assume that I'm in major, and I make the key signature, whatever that is. That's how I do my accidentals, or you can figure out diminished chord. And this is simply a 7 diminished chord of 5. And you can have a 7 of 5 of anything. There's no barrier, except you can't have a 7 of 7 because you can't tonicize the 7 chord. But you can tonicize just about anything else and just put a 7 chord in front of it. And the 7 chord can be like any other chord. It can be in inversions. It can do all that stuff. Let me warn you about a couple of things. And I should have warned you about this with the secondary dominants too. Whenever you have an altered note, it's got a function. It's that sharp drives you up. Remember, an X is a leading tone. So normally we double the bass note, but you can't double the F sharp, because look what happens if I double the F sharp. If I double the F sharp, it still wants to go up. And now I've got parallel octaves. Now, some people would then just not have it go up, but it's bad voice leading. It's very hard to sing or to play. So the best thing to do is double a different note. You can double any note that is, let's say I doubled the 2 C's. You can double any note that doesn't have an accidental in front of it, unless there's something weird like that tritone of a diminished chord, or you don't want to ever double the 7th, because 7ths have to resolve down. You get parallel octaves. So just when you see a sharp, like in a secondary dominant, or flat, like that reduced note, don't double the accidental, even if it's in the bass. Now remember, I can put this in inversions, and then we can double the bass note, but don't double it when it's in the bass. Now, what happens if I say, I don't want to just do a 5, I want to do a 7-7? Because remember, I can add 7th to anything. Well, you easily can. F sharp A, C, and what would be the 7th? Well, here's where it gets really intriguing, all right? Okay, let me see. So 7th would be some form of an E, right? F sharp is your root. So E, F, F sharp, that's a half diminished chord. And that's what you would expect since 5 is in major. And composers will sometimes do this, but not very often. And here's why. If you want real power, you want a half step dragging you down. And since this is an altered chord anyway, we've already created something outside the key signature, you might as well borrow from the minor. Remember, in minor, we use a full diminished 7th chord. In major, we have a half diminished. Then this is now a full diminished 7, and it has so much more power than the half diminished, because that half step really wants to pull down. So the rule in secondary 7th chords is that you can have a half or a full diminished. But the full diminished is much more common. Now, if you're going to a minor chord, I think always use a full diminished, because if you're tonicizing the minor, you want it to sound like it's a 7 in minor. Full diminished is normal. But if you're tonicizing a major chord, you'd think you'd use the half diminished. It's allowed, but it's better to use the full diminished because it just gives more pull, more power. Composers always looking for more tension, more tension, more tension. So the full diminished chord, more common when doing a 7 of 7, a 7-7 of 5, or 7-7 of 2, or a 7-7 of anything else. But you can tonicize anything and put a 7, and you can make it a 7. You can use any inversion, and you can use the half or full diminished, although full diminished is far more common. All right, I think that's basically it, because now we know not to double altered tones. That's a rule in every chord. We know not to double 7ths because they have to resolve, a rule in every chord. And now we're seeing the 5s and 7s behave exactly the same, even when we've changed what the local tonic is. Good. Start modulation next time. Call me if you have any questions. Take care.